What if I told you that being unproductive, being lazy, being an addict aren't actually problems? Let me explain. Imagine a tree, right? A tree, it has its roots, it has the bark, it has the leaves, it has the branches, and this tree has a weed growing underneath it. And this weed steals nutrients from the tree and slowly kills it from the inside. Because of this weed, the tree experiences certain symptoms, like the bark starts chipping off, the leaves start falling down, the branches become weak. Imagine if you saw this tree and you knew there was a weed underneath it, but instead of curing the weed, you just duct tape the fucking leaves back onto the tree, you super glued the bark back on. Sure, the tree looks nice now, it looks normal, but it's still dying and you haven't actually solved the problem. This is the root problem. You've just solved the symptoms around it, not the actual root problem. And that's such a waste of time because if we just killed the root problem, all of these would go away. The tree would get back to normal on its own. Just like how if you remove the weed, the tree will just naturally get better. When we improve our mental health, these things like addiction, being lazy, a lack of motivation will slowly go away on their own. So if you want to stop these bad habits, if you want to feel more motivated, instead of looking at the symptoms, why don't we strike at the root problem? Kill the thing in the middle that's causing all these symptoms and the symptoms will solve themselves. You should focus on the root problem, and here's how to mentally glow up and improve your mental health. Firstly, once you go through this video, you're gonna realize that it's kind of mean, but I'll be mean. 80% of people are fucking brain dead. Because let's say 1% or like 5% of people have very severe depression. Like if we were to put it on a scale, it'll be like 9 out of 10 depression, 8 out of 10 depression, where it's so bad that they need to seek help and they know that, okay, there's something wrong with me. But you'll probably agree that most people in your class, your family, even yourself, most people have 2 out of 10 depression, 1 out of 10 depression. It's just enough that it affects their life on a day-to-day basis, but it's not enough that they go seek help, and it's not enough that they actually know. It's just an underlying thing, like the weed underneath the tree that you don't know about. Their life is just good enough that they never go out and seek help, and instead just this manifests in them posting edgy memes on Instagram to try to be relatable. So analyze your life. Do you have like 2 out of 10 depression where sometimes you just get hit with this wave of sadness and meaninglessness for no reason? Do you have like 3 out of 10 anxiety where sometimes you get worried about someone hurting you or something bad happening even though there's no indication that that would be the case? Or maybe you have symptoms of like 3 out of 10 ADHD where it's just enough that it impacts your life and you can't focus on a task for a long period of time. If you go to your classroom, you will see this with a lot of people. Maybe they've never said it, but maybe internally they know that, oh yeah, my focus isn't very good and I'm not very happy all the time. And once you realize this, you like pull back the curtain and you can see everyone like, damn, my classmates, my family, even myself, we all have mild forms of like depression, mild forms of ADHD where you can't even look at each other without looking at our phone or looking in the comments. Scroll back up. I see you, Madison from California. Just a disclaimer, this is what I personally did to go from like crying every week, like to the point that I would just schedule it in my calendar like a fucking weirdo. Like, and I didn't write it like, 6 p.m. cry. I would write it as just a mental note. Like whenever I cried, I would just write it in my calendar and mark it so that I could see how often it was and also the events surrounding it, because this was back in secondary school a couple of years ago. It's so funny because I would see the exam week and all of it would be like crying, and then on the non-exam weeks there's nothing wrong, and I'm like, wonder why my mental health is bad. So yeah, I think school is a big reason, and for most people watching me are probably students. So here are some practical tips that you can use, that I used to go from whatever the fuck that was to now being happier, more fulfilled, and more disciplined than ever. Firstly, exercise, then breath work, then purpose/direction. We'll go through one by one. So first, exercise. Exercise is what makes animals feel like animals. All animals exercise. All animals run, jump, climb, fight, and we don't do that. You spend most of your time seated at your black computer chair or in class or on your bed. And obviously, I don't have to tell you that exercise improves your physical health, and generally whatever improves your physical health will also impact your mental health. And whatever impacts your mental health will also generally impact your physical health. They're linked. That's why they're both under the category of health. And you can start anywhere, especially with cardio, because cardio is what makes you feel alive. Like, when you were a kid and you were going down a really steep slope on your bicycle and you try not to brake, you try to go as fast as possible like a roller coaster. Nobody can be depressed whilst doing that. No one in the history of mankind has been going down a slope at like 90 miles per hour singing to Tiny Dancer. No one does that and feels depressed at the same time. You feel excited, you feel alive, you feel in the moment. So a lot of people do cardio for like the physical benefits and the exercise. If you want the mental health benefits, you cannot do it on a treadmill or on a stationary bike. You need to go outside and integrate with nature. So this one's kind of like exercise plus nature together. Cardio is like music. Everyone likes music, everyone listens to music. It just depends on what kind of music fits you, what kind of genre you like. So everyone can do cardio because that's what humans are naturally supposed to do. You just need to find the one that fits you. So for me, I don't like running. Running has never been like fun for me, but I can cycle for like 30 kilometers, 50 kilometers. For me, I swim like a disabled person getting tasered, but I can play basketball for like 3-4 hours straight. So you need to find the one that works best for you. Everyone listens to music, unless you're deaf, and everyone can do cardio unless you have no legs, but you know you can. And another thing that I've written here is that you can couple exercise with a team sport, and that's like the most mental health benefits. You get cardio, you get the nature being outside, and you also get social interaction with other people because a team sport forces you to interact with people and make friends. So for example, when I play basketball, I don't really have a choice of whether I speak to people or not. I need to speak to people, and as we all know, social connection helps our mental health a lot. Then on top of that, other than cardio, you can also start a gym and weightlifting and calisthenics. This is a great outlet for aggression. If your mental health issues are less about being sad and depressed and more about being aggressive or anxious, then martial arts and weightlifting can be a great outlet for that, and also you learn a skill along the way, and if you do weightlifting, you get big as fuck. Number 2, breath work, and this is how to conquer anxiety and make it your little bitch. Firstly, I'm going to go through the mindset. So when I get anxious personally, it can start with like one text message or one anything, like a small thing, and it can start spiraling and spiraling and spiraling because your brain is just that way. Your brain just likes to do that. You overthink and you're very introspective, which it kind of works against you in this scenario. You're like Doctor Strange in Infinity War, where you're looking at every single possibility of bad things that could happen. And so the mindset that I keep is that worrying about the thing, being anxious about the bad thing happening, does nothing to stop the bad thing from happening. Like your thoughts alone will not stop any bad thing from happening, alright? You're not Professor X. He died anyway, so like it doesn't even matter. So if you're worried about something, instead of keeping it in your mind and constantly like letting it ruminate, and it's almost like a balloon where if you put too much air, you keep on putting air into it, it's gonna blow up. If you keep letting your thoughts do that, your brain's gonna blow up. Not literally, but you know what I mean, right? So instead of keeping it in here, write it down. I always write it down on like the notes app or on a piece of paper. Write it as like a brain dump. Just everything your brain is thinking of, write it down, because when it's all jumbled up in here, it's much harder to think of the next action to do, because the thought thinks about another thought, and the thought thinks about the thought that thought about the thought. But when you write it down, everything is nicely organized. You're like, oh, that's the problem. That's the issue. That's the thing I can actually do. And that leads you to actually taking action. Because the thoughts don't mean anything. They won't stop the bad thing from happening. It just stops you from enjoying the good times right now. So if you want to actually stop the bad thing from happening, write it down and create an action plan to try to negate or reduce the bad thing from happening. And then second, this is very practical, breath work. I'm going to go through this with you actually. I do this thing called double inhale breathing by Dr. Huberman. Like I learned it from him, right? The first time I did it, I felt it instantly. So you just like, sit up. You're going to breathe all the way until your lungs can't take in any more air. So just breathe in. And then once it's like full, you can't breathe in anymore, just do a sharp inhale and sneak in just a little bit more air. So you're going to breathe in like this. And that's it. And then you exhale quite slowly, and the sun just went away. So that's how you know it's good. Take a couple breaths right now. Breathe in, sharp inhale, and slowly breathe out. And over the next couple seconds as you watch the video, just take 2 or 3 more breaths the same way. Like the sciencey stuff behind it, if I remember correctly, is like your lungs, when you take shallow breaths, which is what you do when you're anxious, it doesn't fill up these air sacs in your lungs. And when that happens, you feel restrictive, you feel like you're suffocating, which is why anxiety feels like that. But when you force yourself to inhale as much air as possible, even a little bit more than you're supposed to breathe in, that's when those air sacs get filled up with air and you calm down really quickly. And that's why the most common advice whenever you say, oh, I'm anxious, everyone says, take a deep breath. Whenever you feel anxious, if you can just turn your brain off and just do this practice like 10 times, you'll feel much better and much more well-equipped to actually deal with the problem. So I make it a goal to do this at least 10-20 times a day, and you can do the same goal as well and continue to increase it until throughout the whole day you're breathing fully. Whether you're at home, whether you're at the bus stop waiting for your bus, whether you're in a queue, whether you're in class, you can always take a couple deep breaths. and you'll feel much more present and mentally clear. Remember that anxious thoughts do nothing to actually stop the problem, but it does ruin your ability to enjoy the present moment. Bars. Alright, number 3, direction. So goals and direction are so important for your mental health, but no one really talks about it. A lot of people talk about like gratitude, journaling, and meditation and stuff. I don't even do meditation. I just do breath work, by the way. Like nowadays I don't do, that's like a side note, but I don't do meditation anymore. I just do breath work. The thing is that goals are a lot deeper than just, I'm gonna make my academic comeback, bro. Without a goal, without direction, we just kind of float through life because we don't have something to aim at. And so you don't have hope for the future because you're not thinking of the future. When you have a specific thing in mind that, oh yeah, this year I'm gonna accomplish X, Y, and Z, you have hope for the end of the year, and you're like motivated. You don't really think about this, but you're motivated to live till the end of the year to experience those things, whether you get it or not, because you want to try at least. Like if you had no goal, no light at the end of the tunnel, you're just going to school every day and you don't even want a job. Like the best case scenario is you go to school every day, you do well, and you get a job that you don't even like, and you have to spend the rest of your life in that job. If this was a race and there's nothing at the end of it, why run? Because running a race that leads to nowhere is an empty pursuit and is completely meaningless. So if you have nothing at the end of the race, that's why people opt out of the race. That's a very PG way to say they want to kill themselves. So do this. With setting a big goal, set smaller goals along the way that lead up to the big goal. A lot of people think, oh, my goal is to gain 10 kilograms, but that'll take too long. I'm not going to see any progress. That's because you're thinking of you right now, 0 kilograms to plus 10 kilograms. But the thing is, along the way, you have little increments. Like each month, you gain 1 kilogram, 1 kilogram, 1 kilogram. This is the level of progression that makes us feel alive because we can see progress being made. And this is so important because it makes it feel like the days add up to something, like our life is going in a direction. Like every step in this race adds up to the thing at the finish line. That's what makes us feel alive. It's not just you're not at your destination, then you suddenly are at your destination. It's the journey along the way as well, which sounds really cringe, but it's true. And if you don't know what you should be working towards, what goal to set, here's a simple way that I found my purpose. Ask yourself this one question: what is my life's biggest constraint? What is the thing that's restraining your life the most, that's constricting you the most, that's limiting your freedom, limiting your happiness? So if you're poor, you should probably work on your finances. That should be the goal. If you're overweight, then you should focus on your fitness. If you're currently getting really bad grades in school, then it's probably gonna be grades. If your mental health is really bad and that's why you're watching this video, then guess what? Your purpose, your goals right now should be aligned to mental health. And we simply go one by one. So we find the biggest constraint right now, we work on it, we alleviate it, then we go into the next one. And we keep asking ourselves this question: what is the biggest constraint? What's the biggest constraint? Until we've alleviated most of them. And at that point, you'll be free, you'll feel happy because you set yourself up for success. So if mental health is going to be your goal from where you are right now to the perfect point where you're happy, fulfilled, disciplined, on the way, just focus on the daily habits. So you can put in breathwork, you can put in gratitude journaling, you can put in nature, you can put in exercise, the things that I've talked about, and just focus on them on the day-to-day basis. I have a whole video about this, but focus on the tasks on the day-to-day basis, not too much on the goal. The goal simply serves as a direction more than anything else. So yeah, that's what I did to improve my mental health. I think if you do this for like a week, 2 weeks, you will see a drastic improvement, and you'll realize that most people with shit mental health have never done anything to actually tackle it, but they just complain about it. Like if someone's talking about depression or anxiety and you ask them about it, like what if actually done, you ask them to exercise, if you ask them to try breath work, they'll just say no, it doesn't work. Or they're just simply too lazy, and that's like the spiral, right? You don't improve your mental health, which makes it worse, and when your mental health is bad, you feel lazy, so then you don't improve your mental health because you are too lazy to do that, and then it gets worse, and then you get even more lazy, then this spiral continues. That is genuinely most people's lives. So if you're starting, break out of this spiral as quickly as possible. It literally takes 1 week, 2 weeks to do that. See the first 1 to 3 weeks as removing the weed, and once the weed is removed from the tree, it still takes time afterwards for the tree to recover. And so for the next 1 to 3 weeks, as you focus on your mental health, this is removing the root problem, but afterwards you still need time to recover, and for the tree, which in this case is your mental health, to heal. And obviously, depending on how bad your mental health is, it might take a month, it might take 3 months, 6 months, 1 year. But it's worth it in the end because life is just the experience that happens in here. So if you can improve here, you improve the rest of life. So to conclude, these are the actionable steps. Use exercise to feel alive and excited and connect with nature and with other people through team sports. Using breathwork, I was able to calm my racing mind and tell it to shut the fuck up and stop overthinking. And finally, set a big goal so that you have a direction to run towards, and that way, every day feels like it adds up to something. So, yeah, take action. Oh yeah, on a side note, I don't even meditate anymore. I just do like the breathwork thing. So, consistently throughout the day, like every 4 or 5 hours, I'll just take a deep breath. I'll just remember suddenly and be like, yeah, should probably take a deep breath right now. And that's all I do. I don't meditate anymore because that has been the least consistent habit of mine. I always put it in, but I just never end up doing it because you're literally doing nothing, bro. I might make a full video about this, but yeah. Because I've replaced it with something else. I've replaced it with breathwork and something else, which I might make a video about. So if you want that, you can tell me in the comments. Yo, really quick, if you like my advice and you want more, you can get more in my private community, Rough Club. I do multiple calls a week in there. I have courses. I just spent a couple weeks working on a YouTube course that I'm super proud of. I do community posts. I spend like a couple hours in there every single day. It's kind of like my hub, right? So I won't try selling you too much right now. If you want to support me or you just want more from me, you can go click the first thing in the description right now to learn more. If not, that's completely fine because all the YouTube videos are still here for free for your value. Give me a kiss. Mwah.